Welcome to webinar 13 of Incredible Michaelites. It's all about St. Michael's 1858. And today, the Incredible Michaelites with us are, we have got Mr. Jagjeet Sinha, 1973 batch. We have got Mr. Vivek Srivastava, 1981 batch. And we have got Mr. Anshuman Gaur, 1992 batch. As we know, the flow of our webinar starts with the school stories and the anecdotes by Amber Sir, followed by the professional and the personal achievements, and then we come to the last part of it, which is the two-liners to all the Incredible Michaelites who are listening to it. So we'll start this webinar 13. Over to you, Amber Sir, on the school stories.
Yeah, thank you, Nishant. And a very hearty welcome to the Three Incredible Michaelites. This is webinar 13, and Incredible Michaelites is, of course, all about Michaelites, but then initiated by none other than the bearded man smiling in front of you, and that is Nishant Dayal. All right, and as is the practice, we start off with the senior most. All right, before that, Incredible Michaelites, the webinar is all about, yes, friends who fight for you, friends who respect you, friends who include you, friends who encourage you, friends who need you, friends who deserve you, and friends, most importantly, who stand by you. And then St. Michael's, Incredible Michaelites, well, they are all Incredible Michaelites, and I'm sure they are because of the teachers, because of the grooming they got in their alma mater. So yes, the teachers, it's very important to teach kids how to count. But I think what is more important is, well, to teach kids what counts. And that is the best. And St. Michael's, yes, taught all of them what counts, as the best lesson which they carried forward and took forward. So with your permission, Anshuman, all right, Anshuman, I would call you the baby of the panel at the three panelists over here, 92 batch, Anshuman, and then of course Vivek. So we start off with Jagjeet, all right?
Absolutely, sir.
And then we'll come to you, then to Vivek and then to Anshuman. So welcome, Jagjeet, welcome. All right.
Thank you, Amber. My fondest memories of school, because I guess me and Amber belong to the era where we saw Father Murphy in full flow, almost at the end, towards the end of his life, but pretty much the beginning of ours. And the memories go back to the kindness that he taught, the warmth that he effused, and the encouragement and enthusiasm that he used to provide individually to, at least that's how I saw it. And many students would recall his great heartedness. I am very happy to admit.
Yeah, Jagjeet, I'm sorry I'm interfering, but you told me about what he did for you, and what was remarkable was you were a day scholar, you were not a boarder, and then for Father Murphy to actually do whatever he did for you was absolutely unbelievable.
No, I agree with you. I had come from St. Xavier's Ranchi in 8th standard, and it was amazing that within a year he had taken to me, and I used to stammer at that time. And while I got encouragement from my grandfather, who also used to stammer when he was my age, and then went on to become an incredible lawyer and Chief Justice and Governor, so he used to encourage me. But Father Murphy kind of used to call me over in summer holidays, spend time with me in the evenings, an hour or two, going through tongue twisters. Betty bought a bit of, but those kinds of tongue twisters, and then exercises of the tongue, putting pebbles under my tongue and trying to make me speak and stretching the tongue to the left and right. And I used to go even in summer holidays, sometimes on my bicycle, and we were living in Strand Road, so it was quite a trek. It was about 8 kilometers, and it was just so incredibly, two things happened as a consequence. One, we used to have a school play, and our batch school play was Arthur Miller's The Death of a Salesman. And while everybody was put through auditioning process, here I was, Murphy's nominee, straight into one of the two major roles. The other role was played by Kapil Bawa, a classmate of mine, who's now who also went to IIM. He went to IIM Calcutta, and then he's a professor. He was in Columbia and then McGill. I haven't I've met his parents, but I haven't met him for a while. And the second act was, we had the students' council, and the most popular student in our batch was, you'll recall, Amber, was Harikant Rai.
Yes.
And he was virtually unanimously elected, I think, the president of the council. And if you remember, Someshwar Dayal Singh. Someshwar was an equally popular student. He was the general secretary in our batch. I ran into Someshwar later in Geneva when he had moved to Switzerland, and he was with the United Nations in Switzerland for a very long period. And so these two were elected. And then there was the principal's nominee. And again, there I was, Father Murphy's nominee straight into the students' council. So literally my name was transformed from Jagjeet to Murphy Jeet. So that is a memory I'm very, very delighted to share. The other bit was then, the enthusiasm that he used to infuse in you. I don't know I think in your batch you probably didn't see it, but in our batch, there used to be a thing called the United Nations Schools Organization.
Yeah, the USO.
And they did the USO, and they did a general
now, of course, it's a very popular one. I mean, most of the schools do it, but that was very rare at that time. Yeah.
Yes. So I think it started in 1972. At least our school got onto the map in 1972. And I was in the very first year. I think I was in the top 3 in the country. So, and what Father Murphy did was, without telling me, he had got the intimation, and suddenly in the school assembly in the morning, he announces very proudly, we are and it was for me it was quite an enthusiastic welcome from the principal. And it stayed with me in the sense that it became such a part of my character. I kept quizzing right through college. So at IIT, I kept quizzing, and then, I guess my quest for general knowledge never stopped. We used to have a competition at IIT called Brain of IIT, and I was in the finals every year. I won it twice in 1977 and 78. But it was the enthusiasm.
You must have rubbed shoulders with one of my classmates, Hemant Jalan. He was also into a lot of quizzing and debating and so on. 1971.
Yes. I recall, Amber. I used to go represent IIT in the inter-IITs, and at IIT Kanpur, which was the only IIT at that time which had a closed circuit TV. So the quiz competition used to be held on the closed circuit TV in the campus. And I remember seeing him and Sanjeev Sahai. If you remember Sanjeev Sahai from your batch?
Yes.
So the year that I went, Sanjeev was the president of the Gymkhana, elected president of the Gymkhana. And so so I have rubbed shoulders with some of your colleagues, yes.
Yeah.
And another IIT chap, in fact, from the same batch from Kanpur. 2 of them are very close friends here in London.
So what a journey it was for you, basically. I mean, from Jagjeet, who became Murphy Jeet, and had he not become Murphy Jeet, well, he would not have, achieved what he did. I mean, personality-wise, because that's, the whole world opened out for you, and that was, thanks to Father Murphy and Father Cox.
Yes.
Now, would you like to recall Father Cox's role as well, as far as the casual library, English teacher, all right? I mean, I'm sure you would.
I know. I used to borrow books from his library, and he said, "One day, Jagjeet, you will fill up this library." I said, "Okay." That promise was never fulfilled because I did run into him only once since school, but he was in poor health at that time. He passed away, I think, in the early or mid 80s.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
I remember all the books used to be stamped with "Alone." Remember, alone is not a gift.
Yeah, but he would hardly, he would hardly record it in that sense. In the sense,
Yes.
he wanted the students, the boys, to actually come and read, and he would never sort of recommend. I mean, it was the open shelves, open access system, of a library, and so young we were, and then still we could just go in, barge in, and pick a book and then come out. I mean, it was remarkable. And I'm sure even Anshuman, 1992 and the 90s, of course, when they were young, I mean, 80s batch also, like my students also experience the same thing. Right. Okay, wonderful, wonderful, Jagjeet.
Amongst the teachers, there's one the mathematics teacher. I'm sure he was there for you too as well. It was P.S. Raj.
Oh, yes, yes,
And
absolutely.
Raj was again another way. I liked him. He, I guess, was fond of me as well. I was usually pretty good at mathematics, but he would make sure with his little acts to provide encouragement. I remember there was probability, permutations and combinations, and he would always get stuck, or I guess so he feigned it, and I would be walking in the corridor and then say, Jagjeet, can you come in, and I'm trying to explain this to students. So and he would, I knew he knew the answer, but he would want you to do the presentation as his way of encouraging.
Very true. In fact, I regard Mr. Raj as I think the first teacher of mathematics who basically did not instill fear, neither of the teacher nor of the subject. In fact, he removed it. Yeah. He removed it. And by the time Mr. Raj came, well, my maths unfortunately had gone for a lovely toss. It had gone for a 6. Okay, a typical, Chris Gale 6. All right. Thank you so much, Jagjeet, for your wonderful memories. Now I move over to Vivek. So Vivek, welcome to you. And just as in welcome. So good evening. Well, just as in the case of Jagjeet, it was all Father Murphy, and of course Father Cox, always playing that very important role, always. In your case, I'm sure it was Father Harland, but then Father Cox very much there. All right. So over to you, Vivek, to recall your memories of teachers. Well, the one principle, and then of course, we would all consider these American fathers and the other fathers who stayed in the fathers building. We always considered them, as a kind of co-principals, And we used to, I was in the boarding, so we used to, keep on wondering, okay, now they are having a meeting with the boss. And we used to call Father Murphy, boss. Okay, so boss ke saath meeting chal rahi hai inki. And we hardly ever saw during school time, during the duration of the school, during the school hours, Father Murphy and Father Cox would never talk. It was only in those school trips, all right, that we would see them, having banter with each other and pulling each other's legs. So you also would have found Father Cox very much there supporting Father Harland, because Father Harland had, lovely large shoes to step into, after Father Murphy, right from Xavier's. It was all Father Murphy, Father Murphy, Father Murphy. And how wonderfully Father Harland also stepped in his shoes in his own way, in his own unique way. Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, sir. As you said, we actually didn't see Father Murphy. By the time we joined the school, Father Murphy was no more, actually. And it was Father Harland, and it was Father Harland all the way.
Yeah.
And as his actually name denotes, Father, he was really like a father figure. So there was, in a sense, some amount of fear. I won't deny that, which in today's maybe school children may not be there for the children because of all those things. Because you could never take them for granted. And of course, Father Cox was also there. So, and Father Cox was actually our class teacher also in class 10th. So first I'll speak about Father Harland. So his benign presence was everywhere. And I said he was a father. So, and in a sense, being a father, he could actually take you to task also. And while he was very benign, but as I said, you couldn't take things for granted. So when he would be moving in the school, so there will be absolute discipline, silence, and everywhere. Father Cox, I remember one of the few words which he spoke as he was a class teacher, because in class 10th, he was the English teacher also and also the class teacher. So the first day he comes and then he sits and he, of course, grins. And when he grinned, then he had that false teeth, which was yellowish type, proper teeth. And he said, I am told that this is a tough class. And I like tough classes. So that sort of silenced quite a bit of us. We thought we were very smart, very boisterous. But that was a pretty sobering first line from him. And there is actually, I see a huge difference in technique. And in English, he used to say, okay, look here, there are two ways of learning English. One is through the grammar. And of course, there's this J.C. Nesfield book, and of course, you can go.
Yeah, J.C. Nesfield, Wren and Martin, yeah.
And the other is by reading books. And my advice to you, all of you, would be that you actually read books to improve your English and improve your vision and improve your knowledge. And of course, the library was very much there. And as you said, it was an open library, and you could go and take any book and it actually taught you how a person can trust. And I see that in office all the time. If you trust your subordinate, I think that they repay it back. But as it happened even at that point of time, not every student could be trusted, because I know for sure that some people actually took books which were never actually returned. Very sad to do this to a person who has been so trusting, but for most of us, I repeat, we would make it absolutely sure that the book was returned in the condition in which it was actually taken. So that was a huge learning experience. And this advice I still remember. And in fact, I have told my children also, English is not is a funny language, to put it rather mildly. And if you want to master it, is the best way is to actually read books, and you gain in more ways than one. As far as the other teachers are concerned, but all teachers were different, and their methodology of teaching, etc., was different. Some, for example, Mary McDonald, she used to teach us actually geography, and was good at it and very sincere. But her emphasis was that you should actually use the sentences and the phrases which are used in the textbook, and you don't use your own words. So, in fact, that in a way that was good, because then you had to use your memory, which is actually a very good thing, and try to memorize things and reproduce it verbatim in the exam to get good marks. And of course, Sarraj, as Jagjeet Sinha sir has said, that he would make us do a lot of practice. I was also good in maths, but I was not very good in English. Let me clarify. In my initial years in class 4th, 5th, 6th, it became better and better and better and better. That is a different thing. But Sarraj, I go enormously, because he would give us lots and lots of sums to practice. And that is one thing I learned. If you want to make a subject your own, then the best way is to struggle with it, and at all points of time, study is not enjoyable. Let me put it that way. If people say study should be very enjoyable and very this experience, at times it is, but at times it is slightly rough weather. And mathematics is one subject which will off and on provide you occasions where you'll have to actually struggle. But I think during those struggles, your actually neurons makes those connections. You can start seeing patterns which you normally would not otherwise. So all these different 3-4 teachers I have named, and of course, then Sir Lal was also there, who taught would be maybe a wrong saying, but he taught us history. That is, and I didn't learn much of history, to be sure, but he was also there. So there were different shades of teachers. But the school actually, in totality, they shaped us, because in some subjects you have to study yourself to do reasonably well, because of course, no school can have teachers. All teachers are extremely good, and you don't have to actually struggle yourself. So in that, the school was a holistic experience. Our peer group was very strong, and we had very good students. That, in fact, that is one of the strongest points of this school, this peer group, and this relationship, this bonding, which is enduring over time. Even these days, if I recollect my best friends, most of them, if I start counting on my fingers, would be from St. Michael's. It has been 1981 since I have left that school.
Very true.
But and one has worked at number of places, etc. But that bonding which has happened during those 6 years in St. Michael's, and roaming around and playing in the field and that swimming pool, etc., with not so clean waters at that point of time.
Maybe, for some, hiding behind the swimming pool, to have a little fag. All right, I'm using a slang. Huh? All right, so that's also the, it used to be there.
So it is the entire package which comes to St. Michael's. Of course, academics is just one part of it.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, you pointed out a very correct thing, because Jagjeet and Anshuman both will agree that, you had your peers, your classmates who really, like who gave you a kind of a run for the money as far as studies were concerned, or even co-curriculars were concerned. I'm sure, like my batchmate Arun Singh would always remember Jagjeet Sinha, the 1972 batch. Siddharth would always remember, Yash. Okay, and in the same way, Jagjeet would always remember Baba. Okay, and and that's how, and that's a very valid point that you made just now, Vivek. That you see, what was remarkable was not just the teachers, but the entire holistic experience provided by teachers, provided by your classmates, your seniors, even juniors. All right, and that's a wonderful point. I'm sure Jagjeet was nodding his head, and I'm sure he agrees to that, because that was one very strong point.
Just one small point I would like to raise. I went to DPS after that. So one of the most striking things was in St. Michael's, the seniors would never bully you. That kind of bullying which I have seen in other schools. But seniors were seniors. You respected them, and they would be treated like seniors. But it did not cross a line. So yes. That was actually exceedingly well, because then you learn a lot from your seniors. You can approach them and they can teach you a lot, because they have just a 1 year senior can be the best teacher you can actually have. And that was also a great help.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vivek, for your wonderful memories. Anything naughty that you remember? I mean, you and your friends would have done, although you were not the naughty kind. All right. But
yes, I was really not the naughty kind. So, but many of my batchmates were. So, without their consent, I would not like to actually.
Okay. All right. Great. Now I start off now. Okay. Now I'll move on to Anshuman. Okay. So Anshuman, in fact, I'll start off with a clap for Anshuman. That's not because he has validated the points that made by Jagjeet and you. Because as a panelist, he was passing on the message and typing for both of you that, I'm so lucky to be following in your footsteps. All right. Being, a Michaelite of 1992. And that is what I believe, St. Michael's legacy is all about. It's not just about achievement. It's not just about doing big, it's about humility. It's about gratitude, the attitude of gratitude. And that's Anshuman. Just now while sitting there, he has already shown to, all of us, and you must have also read it. So Anshuman, welcome with a clap, all right, because you finished this, I would say the trial with a lot of humility, a lot of gratitude, to your seniors. And that's what perhaps the St. Michael's legacy is all about. And that's why St. Michael's is so global. Anshuman, welcome.
Thank you, sir. It is actually humbling to be on the same panel as Jagjeet Singh and Vivek, sir. I mean, this is actually a very humbling experience. But this is also what school is about, sir. It is about the school, the teachers, the whole aura of the school, also the alumni and your cohorts and your classmates who were there with you. As you know, sir, I only did 2 years in St. Michael's, but I'm kind of very proud to be called a Michaelite, and I'm not hesitated in using the benefits that come with being a Michaelite. So that's true. It does open doors to you. It does. The network does help. I mean, I've been in US, and as Jagjeet sir was saying, in World Bank at a meeting, there were actually 6 Michaelites on the table. So it's pretty phenomenal in the kind of presence they've had over the years in various places. And yes, Vivek sir is right. At a point in Delhi, there was a St. Michael's mafia, the kind of the presence we had in the civil services. Of course, when I joined St. Michael's, sir, the era of Father Murphy and Father Harlan was kind of over. Father Cox was still around there. He still had his library. I made use of it, but he was not teaching actively. He was keeping progressively.
Yeah, had he been teaching, I wouldn't have found a place there. So in fact, Father Cox was the one who interviewed me. It was hardly an interview, and he called me over. So yes, very true.
Yes, sir, but I was coming to, it was the era of P.T. Augustines and P.S. Rajes and Amber Banerjee the other day. I mean, you taught me, Mr. Raj taught me, and great. I mean, I still pretty much use what he taught me of probability. You know, Mr. Majumdar, he taught me chemistry. I went through college pretty much on what I had learned in his class. So it was an absolutely amazing experience to be there. I mean, we were blessed with having a very entertaining set of people as my classmates. They're doing phenomenally well. Some of them are heading industries. Some of the smartest guys are amazing doctors in United States. They went through AIMS. Some of them are heading big corporates. So yes, it is great to be part of that family, that fraternity. One of the incidents I remember actually happened in your class. It was I think 90, and we all knew of your love for tennis and for a particular tennis player from Argentina. So this is after the US Open.
Gabriela Sabatini.
Yes, it was Sabatini, and Sabatini had this string of losses to Graf that year, and this was US Open, and she had won. So we came to class next day. We came to your class, and we knew that this would be a special day because none of us wanted to actually study whatever you were trying to teach us. We wanted more discussion on what was happening on the tennis field or what had happened on the tennis field. And we kept quiet, kind of like a planned thing. We kept silent and we kept waiting for you. You walked in, you looked around, and you were surprised that no one brought it up for 5 minutes into the class. And you had to break the ice and say, well, the princess became the queen today. And you know, of course, we didn't study anything after that. But that was what school was about. There was a lot of sport. I played some sport for most of the school teams, athletics, cricket. It was great fun to be there.
Okay, which one did you actually play over there?
I played cricket, sir. I played cricket. I was also in the 100-meter dash, javelin. I was also in quizzing and debate. But I had much better debaters and quizzers in my cohort. So they always represented the school. I mean, some of them are still doing the debate with me. So we were really blessed to be part of St. Michael's. I know it's changed over the years. When I was there, we introduced co-education, and as we talked, we now have daughters who are alumni of the school. So the nature of the school changed, and I don't think it diminishes that those changes which have happened. A lot of seniors tell me, you know, those were their days, and I mean, I also tell them mine days were also pretty nice, you know, compared to that. Yes. I came to St. Michael's from St. Xavier's Hazaribagh. I was in St. Xavier's Patna earlier, so it was not a new school in the sense my uncles, my cousins, all my friends were there. So it was kind of like being in a neighborhood school, but yes, those 2 years I spent there were pretty special. I cherish them.
Yeah, thank you, Anshuman. In fact, Anshuman, in fact, I'm very happy that you pointed this out, because you see, I mean, like somehow or the other, I mean, like, people tend to get the impression that, okay, those were the days, you know, when Father Murphy was there, or when Father Harlan was there. And then, you know, when the Indian fathers took over, those were the days did not, you know, somehow or the other transform themselves. No, not at all. Because even for you, and I'm very happy that you pointed out, you know, about Father Tom Karthana and Father Augustine, because you see, a school is a kind of a microcosm of a sociological factor. And there were so many things which had changed by the time, you know, you were in St. Michael's and I became a teacher. I mean, it was not the same, you know, even the political scenario, the interference, you know, of the, you know, the political outsiders, or not the main politician, but, you know, what we call the chudbhaiyas of the politicians, you know, would also come and, you know, bang their fist on the table of the principal. And it was not easy. It was not easy. And I always, you know, and I'm very thankful to you, Anshuman, for bringing this out and remembering your principles, Father Augustine, you know, and then of course, you know, the others, because that's very important. I mean, like, things have to change. Yes, they have to change. But then, yes, St. Michael's, for St. Michael's, all Michaelites would say, well, when they leave Mike's and they become, whatever they become, they become, yes, passionate and good about what they're doing. And they say, yes, those were the days. Thank you, all three of you. And as I say, it's over to Nishant. And I remained a teacher, and I interacted with you all, when you were young, like schoolmates, Jagjeet, and then Vivek, almost my schoolmate, almost my student. Okay, and Anshuman, you were my student, a very dear student. But then that's it. Now I have always taken under 18 stuff for 18 plus stuff. Okay, over to Nishant.
Thank
Nishant,
you,
he
Ambassador.
was my dear student as well.
Thank you, Ambassador. So, as I always say, Ambassador knows St. Michael's better than anyone else. It has been very evident over the years. Incredible Michaelites started on 7th of June, 2020. We have seen till now 38 Incredible Michaelites over 13 episodes, which is not small, which is really big. And interacting with so many Michaelites and listening to the stories of so many people is really incredible to all of us. And as today we start with our session, we still remember the big part about St. Michael's is we meet people after 2 decades, 3 decades, and sometimes even 4 decades, but we still know that school connection is so strong. So that's all about St. Michael's actually. So I will start with Jagjeet Bhaiya. Jagjeet Bhaiya, 1973, IIT Delhi, 1979, IIM Ahmedabad, 1981. The first half of his career was at Citibank in India and the UK. The second half of his career in Saudi Arabia, where he became Chairman, Chief Risk Officer Committee in 2011 and Secretary Managing Director's Office in 2013. You have a rich experience of 35 years in banking, Jagjeet Bhaiya. We would like to know what was the most challenging part of your journey in banking and finance over those 35 rich years which you have served in the sector.
Thank you, Nishant. There are several stories that I have in mind, but I'll probably do it in order as I encountered them. So starting with the Citibank part of it, I remember at IIM Ahmedabad, two major bits. One was the first bit was the final year project, which was trying to do a mathematical template connecting money, output, and prices. And this was under Professor Rangaraj, who later on became RBI governor. And he was also my reference for the bank. He wrote my reference for the bank job. And learning under Professor Rangarajan is an experience any time in your life. He was so phenomenal. It's perhaps still is, both later on as RBI governor and then chairman, economic advisors to the Prime Minister. I think he's still the chairman of the Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister. This was in Ahmedabad, and my project partner at that stage was Rajiv Kapoor, who joined. Both of us had filled out the IAS forms. I said, if I don't get Citibank, this is where I go. And since I got Citibank, and Rajiv went into the IAS, later on he became Director General at the Masuri Academy. I think he's now retired. He was in the UP. The second bit was another project which I had done, which was under Professor Mohan Kaul, which was for the banking industry, trying to design using computer graphics, which had just come in the campus in 1980, and again setting up a model which enabled banks to perform branch planning. And this was such a phenomenal. I guess Mohan Kaul probably was able to explain it better, because by the time it was entered into the annual student paper contest of the Computer Society of India in 1981, and we did win the gold medal. There were 3 of us who done the project, and then I went on to the bank, where I spent about 16 years, beginning with the Treasury in Bombay, then in Calcutta, which was 2 years in Calcutta, then in Delhi, where in 1989, I became regional credit head in 1987, and then moved on to London in 89 November. So the bit that I remember from the India days, there was the initiatives that I was involved in was bringing a lot of global technology that the bank had and bringing it to bear on the banking business, both for the bank in India as well as the banking system in general. So Citibank was at the forefront with what they used to call global electronic banking. And we brought this in Calcutta to, there was a predicament which, many Indian companies were raising money from the Indian stock markets. Usually these subscriptions used to be oversubscribed zillion times. And then the company had to return this money to the investors who wouldn't be allotted shares. And the multiple used to be, like things like Hero Honda and all got subscriptions like 500 times what their requirements were. So there was huge amounts of money to be sent back to investors, and no bank wanted to do this because it was a very cumbersome process involving lakhs and lakhs of tiny amounts of checks. So and it was in Calcutta in 1984 that we got this opportunity with a small company, pharmaceutical company in Calcutta, and we then created a computer model whereby we were able to do this like we were using MICR checks which had just come in and sorting out and reconciling the entire process and presenting it back to the issuer within months rather than the years that used to take before that. This was great for the bank. It tripled our deposit base in the country because the money that went back took some time to go back. And the number of months it stayed with you until the checks were cashed was the float that you enjoyed. Now, we had only 4 branches. Citibank in India at that time had only 4 branches in Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras. So we engaged with Allahabad Bank and United Commercial Bank in terms of being able to use their branches for delivering these checks across the country. The second bit was using global, financial markets. We were at the forefront of the FX market in India at that time. And the first foray into foreign borrowings by Indian companies had begun. And Maruti Udyog had a loan that was taken in Swiss francs. And we then performed, they had taken a loan in dollars, and we had to change the liability profile into Swiss francs because the dollar was expected to appreciate and Swiss franc had lower interest rates. So the first currency swap in the country, I was involved in doing this for Maruti Udyog in India and also for Hero Honda, which had just come into the market. Some of the people on the panel may recall that Hero Honda was the only successful Japanese joint venture. All the others, DCM, Toyota, Eicher, Mitsubishi, Volvo, Nissan, they all collapsed because of the appreciation of the yen. In 1985, in the first half, the yen used to be 345 to $1. And by middle 86, it was 145 to $1. So the appreciation killed almost all the Japanese joint ventures, excepting Hero Honda. And I remember distinctly making a presentation to the board, recommending how to manage their FX liability profile so that they are not hurt. I essentially re-invoicing their imports in dollars rather than in yen. Again, this was the first, and to this day, the chairman of the company, in fact, when I was leaving for London, he wrote me a special letter of recommendation and sent it to the bank saying, I cannot thank the bank enough for having provided us this guidance at this time. So that again, this was thanks because of thanks to Citibank's global network that we were able to coordinate with Citibank Tokyo and present this for benefiting an Indian client. Then the next part of my journey was in London because of, I guess, what I had done in terms of product development, both in Calcutta and in Delhi. There was an opportunity to do the same job or similar kind of job in London. And I transferred to London in 1989 November. And the biggest opportunities here, I was in what's called the European Capital Markets Product Development Group. And we were creating synthetic securities for investors so the issuers would issue their instruments in the profile that they wanted. We would do the black box transformation in the middle and make it available to investors in the form that they want. So the goals of both the issuers and the investors were achieved by this black box transformation using swaps and options in the middle in the bank. This worked very well for some of our biggest corporate customers in Europe of the time. And I remember visits to Germany with Volkswagen and Siemens, Asia Brown Boveri in Zurich, and then there was Alfa Laval in Sweden. Then as Europe had opened up after the Russian collapse in 1990, and the bank's capital markets team was involved in raising money and bringing global capital markets money to issuers across Europe, particularly focused on the developing parts of Europe. And I was kind of thinking to myself, India needs this money as well, and there is no opportunity for being able to do this from here. So my mind was increasingly attracted towards India and trying to see if they can do it for India. Of course, the bank could not focus exclusively on India, but we were able to. I remember because my CEO in India, he was approaching the Indian government in 1990 after the first Gulf War, when the Chandrasekhar government came in. The India credit ratings collapsed from a single A to double B. They couldn't raise any money. The foreign exchange reserves of the country was $354 million. Today it is $354 billion. But remember at that time in 1990, December, 91, January, it was $354 million, which is not even like 3 or 4 days. And then there was no stock market to talk of. The Indian stock market valuation was less than $10 billion. And our external loans had crossed $90 billion. And in the middle of this, minority Chandrasekhar government came in. And luckily for me, I thought I would be the first Sinha to become a finance minister. But Yashwant Sinha beat me to it. And he was finance minister in that short government of 6 months. People give credit to Manmohan Singh, who was hired by Mr. Sinha at that time. Mr. Manmohan Singh had retired in Geneva from a UN organization, and Mr. Sinha hired him as an advisor to the government of India. And they did a thing called the gold swap, which at that time was revolutionary because India had never done that. But to my mind, that was how the opening up process began, because I remember the consultants the Ministry of Finance was using, they came over to London and I met them and I took them to the bank. And we literally, I was selling these synthetic securities to investors in Europe. And with this consultants team, we sat at home and said, look, these are the investors. Citibank Pension Fund had more money than the World Bank had. And the coal miners pension fund had more money than the World Bank had. And the only people that India had till then seen was the World Bank, the IMF, and the Asian Development Bank. They had not started even looking at other possible investors. So when we called up these pension funds, they said, we have no axe to grind against India. We are happy to invest if somebody comes forward with a proposal that works, that makes sense. And so that the opening up process of India in 1991 is perhaps my greatest the highest amount of satisfaction that I derived was being part of that process at that time. And Citibank, in fact, we did because again the reach of our global capital markets, we brought the first Indian GDR, Global Depository Receipts, for a company called Gwalior Rayon, Grasim later. Aditya Birla, I remember he was personally involved in coming to the investors meet and speaking to investors, answering the questions, because this is the first time any Indian company had issued its shares worldwide. Of course, now you see it as quite a common phenomenon, but at that time it was so important that Aditya Birla himself had to be involved in selling this to investors worldwide. So that remains etched in my memory as perhaps my most satisfactory moment, simply because my mind was more, rather than trying to raise all this money for Europe, I was more interested in raising money for India, trying to make the global capital markets flow into India. Then the subsequent I guess is the reason why I eventually, because then they said, all right, Mr. Sinha, your product development ideas are wonderful. We would like you to work on. And I wrote the template for what's called credit derivatives, which are a huge rage now. But at that time, they had not yet been invented. And the first presentations on this product inside the bank, I haven't put it into a book, but I have it all. And but that time, my mind was more focused on India. So I decided that, and I had a Japanese friend. So I was, who was also keen to do this. And we decided on doing this in India for India. So I moved back my family to Delhi. And we tried this for a few years until my friend had brain hemorrhage and he passed away in Tokyo. So I didn't have any other Japanese friend of that time. So at that, and my children were growing up and they wanted to do medicine in London. So I had to come back to London, abandon that initiative that I tried, and look for another job. And when I looked for a job here, I found one in Saudi Arabia. So off I went to Saudi. My children both went to medical schools in London and Bristol. So I'm blessed with two. One is a cardiac surgeon now, and the other is a member of the Royal College of Physicians. Then I went to Saudi Arabia. Again, Saudi Arabia was phenomenal for my personal experience because I have never felt more at home outside of Patna. Patna and Delhi. Saudi Arabia was virtually a second home, if not a third, because I was surprised at the amount of goodwill for India. And from the other side of the border, there were so many friends that I made that I can't even recall. Because, while I was speaking Hindi, they said, Sinha Sahab, aapki Urdu bahut zabardast hai. So it was, I knew that the Hindi and Urdu are identical, but it broke such barriers of friendship. And I found the other side of the border not only very friendly, but I could rely on them just the way we rely on friends from in school in India and school and college in India. It was quite a remarkable opening for me. Professionally, of course, inside, again, I had three principal roles in Saudi Arabia. The first one was for the Development Bank of Saudi Arabia. The second one was with Al Rajhi Bank. And the final one was with Al Inma. And in all these, I found at every stage that there was nothing stopping you. The people carry some wrong notions in mind that Saudi is open only to a particular community. Is not true at all. I found it completely contrary to that. Not only welcoming, but encouraging. And there's so many examples and so many friendships made that it'll take too much time on this platform. But if you allow me, that's where I would stop and ask for questions.
No way. It was very informative, Bhaiya. Thank you. We have to come back to you again on the second order of questions. I will go to Vivek Srivastava. Vivek Bhaiya, welcome. So Vivek Bhaiya is IPS of Gujarat cadre, served at different positions and was also the director of SPG and currently the additional director of IB. Communal rights in Surat in 1992. Yes, sir?
I just thanked you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he was the SP operations when he arrested international drug dealer as well, gave training to Sir Polish while in Bosnia, and was handpicked to be the chief of SPG in 2004 when Mr. Narendra Modi came to power, was the youngest, 49 years, and the junior most to head a central police organization. So welcome, Bhaiya. Fantastic. So I'm just going to start with the first part of it. We would like to know about your role as SP Kutch after the earthquake and how challenging was that?
Thank you, Nishant. I became SP Kutch actually. It was just 1 month before the actual earthquake struck. So that was one of the most challenging periods. I didn't really choose it; it chose itself. So on 26 January, it is very well known that the earthquake struck Gujarat, and in clear 100 seconds, almost the half of Kutch was reduced to rubble, especially Bhuj. and almost close to 20,000 people actually died, and in those 100 seconds, more than 150,000 were pretty severely injured. In Bhuj itself, 4,500 dead. The entire hospital has collapsed, and number of doctors, etc., died. My men also, almost 50 of them actually had died in that. So right now, there is a lot of consciousness about disaster preparedness, etc. Actually, everybody speaks about it, but it is very difficult to think you will be there in the thick of things, actually. So I can tell you, I was on the parade ground on 26 January when the earthquake struck, and it वो जो हिंदी में प्रलय बोलते हैं ना, that was the scene actually. That point, it was difficult to stand. And around me, you could see actually buildings almost collapsing in slow motion. So entire old Bhuj city was reduced to a rubble in 100. Our old headquarters, it actually crumbled in front of me. Even the boundary walls, they crumbled. So then I realized it must be pretty. And after that, there was a huge plume of dust. It was like a nuclear explosion, and everything became black because you couldn't see anything because of that. So I had to think on my feet, and so to what to do now, because in those 100 seconds, all communication gone, no telephone, no. So I went back to my headquarters, and then I started thinking during that time what to do. So first thing was to collect a motley crowd and to furl the flag. The only reason was to gain some time to think how to do that. Now this will actually take a lot of time. Yeah. Suffice it to say that while the DM was transferred in 36 hours, I remained there till the end of my tenure. And actually the PM had come there twice, and we got appreciation even from the PMO and the DG of police for the police force. Police rarely gets any appreciation during crisis times. I guess this was one of the rare times that the work of the police was appreciated. At one point of time, I was commanding actually, or 20,000 people were placed under me. I had requested DG not to send any senior officer. The DIG was there, but no other senior officer was sent for that. So I said, sir, if you either trust me or remove me. So the DG trusted me, and then that is how it went. And then by the end of it, actually, it was a very challenging period, full 1 year, because by the end of it, then there was this Operation Parakram, because the parliament had been attacked. And we were almost near war times with Pakistan. And Kutch is actually one area where we normally lose territory in Indo-Pak conflict. So in no war, you gain territory everywhere. You may gain territory at one place, you may lose territory at here. Now, since Kutch, the run area is the northern boundary of that run is Pakistan. So it is not the central line. So Pakistan is the logistics for Pakistan is very easy on the Indo-Kutch border, but for the Indian side, it is very difficult to go. So all our air assets had come to Nalia and Bhuj air bases, and one had to coordinate with the Air Force and the Army, etc. So that was also a huge learning experience. As far as the police service is concerned, I may call it either I have been unlucky to be at all the wrong places at the wrong time, or in a sense lucky also, because one gains experience by that time. My first posting was in actually Surat. And again, within 1 month, the Babri Masjid was demolished, and we had huge riots in Surat city. In my jurisdiction alone, as an ACP at that point of time, I have the dubious distinction. Under my charge, almost close to 150 people died. So that was 1 month of service. I only survived because I was only 1 month here in service. All my seniors were transferred, all my juniors were suspended. I faced a judicial commission there also. So looking back, one would think how you could have done things differently. But that is a huge thing to face, actually. And the next 1 year were continuous riots. continuous riots. So I became a master in facing riots. And then, of course, I have been SP of Godhra also, Panchmal district. Not at that point of time it is there, but much before that. Very difficult district, actually, Panchmal. And then Baroda rural, and then, of course, this Kutch. Yes, Nishant.
That's great. Very proud feel, Bhaiya. Great experience. Bhaiya, I'll come back to you again. So I'll go to Anshuman Bhaiya. So Anshuman Gaur, 1992, St. Michael's, Indian Foreign Service, 2001, served in various capacities in the Indian embassies at Paris and Nepal with the permanent delegation of India to UNESCO Paris. He also served as OSD to the Vice President of India and as Private Secretary to the Law Minister of India, presently the Consul General of India in Toronto. And about Anshuman Bhaiya, he's also a very avid writer. For Word Weaver in 2017, his collection of poems, Isthmus of Time, was published in 2017 as well. Congratulations, Bhaiya. Great deed. So now we just want to understand, would you be able to illustrate the role of supporting earthquake relief in Nepal during a tenure there?
Thank you, Nishant. Thank you so much for that introduction. Just a correction. I'm the deputy head of mission in Ottawa, not the Consul General in Toronto. Yeah. Although I do happen to know her quite well. No, I was sent to Nepal just after the earthquake, and Vivek sir has just recounted the earthquake experience in Bhuj. It was similar. It was devastating, and I had just come back from my posting in Paris. I was 1 day old in Delhi, and when this thing happened, and my foreign secretary, now the foreign minister, just told me that you have experience of Nepal, so why don't you take the next Galaxy out? And I was on the next first aircraft that actually landed there from Air Force that evening. It was a tough time because we had not the valley had not prepared itself for the kind of disaster which was expected. The lines of communication were cut, electricity was out, and the initial 3 days were quite challenging in terms of just setting up the lines of communication, getting the towers to work. And I mean, people look down upon MTNL and BSNL, but those guys were the ones who came in and kind of set it up in the first 36 hours. And once we had the communication, it became easy. Most of the aid came from India, from Bihar actually, and I'm very proud of the way the government of Bihar responded at that point of time. The district magistrate in Champaran, West Champaran, they appointed a special magistrate there to oversee the effort going into Nepal, and we were able to evacuate more than 9,000 people from the valley itself, Indians who were stuck there. Thankfully, the roads had not been cut off, but we had air evacuation. Our forces came in very rapidly and kind of did all that was required of them in terms of evacuating people, getting aid out to. The team from All India Institute of Medical Sciences turned up, and they kind of set up the first trauma center, which had been constructed in Kathmandu but had not become functional. And that was instrumental in saving so many lives, because after the earthquake, trauma injuries were what we needed. So it was a fantastic learning experience. It was tough time. I mean, as I said, I had served in Nepal. I had friends there. It was tough to see them in that situation. But it was also good to be there to help and kind of lend support to them. The Foreign Service has been a very rewarding and enriching experience all through. I served in Paris twice. Some of the school-centric experiences. I served with Arun Singh sir. Amber sir knows him well. He was my ambassador in Paris. I then went on to serve as OSD to the Vice President of India. So it has been a great experience. Challenging, yes, at times. I've had to do evacuations of Indians who were distressed from Libya, and it's mostly as far as life goes, it's comfortable because you are living in a capital city. Even if you are in Africa and you move pretty much in elite circles, but it's also demanding in the terms that your parents, when they need you most, you're not there with them in India. It's a challenge. I mean, I have had to personally face that challenge. You dislocate. It's very easy for me to answer the question, where are you from? I'm from Patna. You ask this to my daughter. She's lived in 6 different cities, so it's very difficult for her to say where she's from. It kind of it enriches their experience, but it also adds to dislocation. So yes, Nishant, it has been a wonderful experience.
Superb, yeah.
Again,
We will, yeah.
yeah. Please go ahead, Nishant.
No, I just was taking the same story which you told us about the vice president who came to Patna, and you showed him our school and he visited the school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. While I was serving as OSD to the vice president, I was we had a visit planned to Patna. The president of India now was then the governor of Bihar, and we had an extra day. And the vice president asked me, what else does Patna have to offer? So I went through the usual laundry list, I mean, everything from Golghar to Pudavash Library. He had seen it pretty much all. And then he in fact brought it up. He said, what about the school you guys went to? He had worked with Arun Singh earlier. He had heard about the school. He had friends from there in the service and in his political career. So I said, okay, let me see if we can do that. This was in middle of monsoon, and Patna in monsoon is quite challenging the best of the times, but in monsoon it's particularly difficult. So I spoke to Father Armstrong, who was then the principal, and I must say that he responded with great alacrity. And I also thank the Alumni Association. They kind of helped pull the program together. Really, the great effort on part of the Alumni Association. The Patna district administration swung into action, kind of cleaned up the roads leading up to school. So we took the vice president there. It was a short visit, but he did go to the school. He went and planted a tree there. He interacted with the students for quite a while, and he came out very impressed. He himself has been to a Jesuit school in Shimla, so he knew what these schools were like. But he came out very impressed and said, I must say it's a pretty amazing school. The kids, the students deported themselves very well, and I was so proud sitting on the stage and asking them questions. At that age I wouldn't have been able to ask those kind of questions. So it was pretty impressive. It was good fun. I mean, I enjoyed kind of going back to my school with my boss in tow. So yes, it was great, Nishant.
Fantastic, yeah, fantastic. Well, I'll come back to you again. So I'll go to Jagjeet Sinha again. So Jagjeet Sinha, a lot of people from our alumni association and the Michaels family, the extended family altogether, a lot of people from the banking and the stock side as well. So please share the difference in financial markets in India and in the UK, please.
Well, there are quite a few. The differences have narrowed now, because what was there in the 70s and 80s, India has made tremendous progress since 1991. Essentially the onslaught of the global capital markets coming in. You see, when we passed out of college, there was no Goldman Sachs, no Morgan Stanley. None of them existed in India. All this came when 91 happened. And then 92 onwards, they started going in. So what you see today is very similar to what you see in the rest of the world, including the United Kingdom. UK is pretty much the prototype. I mean, I've lived in UK, I've breathed financial markets now for 40 years. The global template of the financial system was created in London. While we have very negative memories, i.e. we in India have negative memories because of East India Company and the history associated with it, the reality is that the US essentially is the same, has borrowed from the original template of the Bank of England. The US capital markets has borrowed from the original template of London. And this is true in Canada, this is true in Australia. So almost the entire English-speaking world unfortunately, India, as I said, because of the 200-year history with Britain, was not integrated. But I think since 90 or 91, the integration has progressed to a point now where, as I mentioned, in 1991, the size of the Indian stock market was less than $10 billion. And I've got all the figures to validate this. The size today is almost $2 trillion. At that time in 1991, the size of UK's capital markets was around 400 million, and India was less than 10 billion. Today, they're almost comparable. So there has been a phenomenal increase in the depth and size of the Indian capital markets, the trading that takes place. I think the principal difference is still, is corporate governance. In India, you have a lot of what is often euphemistically called crony capitalism, where you have these dynasties and there are many infamous names, who have vitiated the atmosphere. In England, you don't see that. But in England, the top 100 companies that are listed in the stock markets are essentially non-family business. There may be the odd 3 or 4 families which are still controlling the businesses. Citibank, for example, was a Rockefeller family business when it was set up 250 years ago. Now it's no longer so. So the institutionalization of the capital markets has deepened the markets, and therefore India is proceeding towards that, but it'll take probably another decade or 2 before our markets are fully institutionalized, rather than big single families owning large chunks of big companies. This happens in Saudi Arabia too. There are large families holding big shares in their largest companies. But even in Saudi, the realization has now kind of come forth that the transition to institutionalization has to take place in order for the markets to be more democratic, in order for finance to be available to the deepest corners, which they're not sometimes available, because what you see in Bollywood, there are few families controlling such a profitable business. The institutionalization in the media industry that you've seen has been brought about by television, with Star and Sony, and so when institutional money becomes available, the ability of individual families to control the destiny of the industry is questioned, and rightly so. And so it becomes more democratic. So the short answer to your short question really is that UK is much more institutionalized. India is still family owned. The transition has not fully happened, but will happen. It's natural progression.
Very good, sir. Thank you, Jagjeet Bhai. So I'll come to Anshuman Bhai once more. So Anshuman Bhai, it's always very satisfying when people do some work for their own city, own place. So we would again like to know about your contribution in helping, TCS to set up a center in Patna, work on national software product policy, etc., as the PS to the Minister of IT.
Thank you, Nishant. I mean, I hardly had any contribution in that. Government of India instituted a policy to take the IT and ITES services to tier 2 and tier 3 towns, because initially only 6 metro areas were kind of dominating it. Almost 80% of the business was concentrated there. So there was a conscious effort by Government of India to take it back to tier 2, tier 3 towns. And of course, Patna was certainly, I mean, everyone thought that Patna would be a natural choice, because given the number of people from Patna who were involved and working in the IT industry in say Bangalore or Noida or Gurgaon. So it was as part of that companies were encouraged to look at Patna, Varanasi, Guwahati as places where they could establish center, and TCS was very forthcoming. We're very thankful to them for that. This was during my stint with the Minister for IT. I was serving as private secretary. He is from Patna, so it was a great desire of his as well, the minister as well, to get it to Patna. we had difficulties. One of the difficulties which we didn't anticipate was finding the personnel within TCS willing to come back and serve in Patna. This was something which was unexpected, but even in the end it was done, and we're very happy that it started. It's a good thing for Patna. Working on the national software product policy was amazing. This was before the Atmanirbhar Bharat happened, and we are in the age of Corona and the ban on the apps and people looking at Indian applications. So this was something which was being championed almost 2 years ago. We had devised a national policy that would encourage, product production in software in India, applications to be written, Indian servers and Indian data storage facilities to be developed locally. But this is one of the few silver linings that this pandemic has had. It's kind of accelerated that process, made people more aware of the need to have domestic capacities. A lot of Indian tools are now available. I mean, you're doing it on Zoom. You could easily have done it on GeoChat. It's there are alternatives now available. So it is yes. I think that policy was kind of instrumental. Came at the right time. That it provided the ground for what's happening now. But yeah, the TCS Center is now up and working. I believe they've gone up to more people than what they had initially catered for. So yes, it's a good thing for Patna, I guess.
Fantastic. Yeah. So for the final set of this, I'll go to Vivek here. Now, as we all know, he was the youngest, head of Central Police Organization as SPG. We would like to understand this high profile and huge responsible position. How did you feel about this when you were heading the SPG? During your journey in this.
Nishant, actually, my first posting was in SPG as the DIG. That was in 2004. So I came on deputation from Gujarat in 2004. So I did a slightly extended tenure in SPG, and there in the last 3 years I was actually DIG operations. So as DIG operations, you are in charge of the PM and his immediate family. So that is actually the crux of the work which the SPG does, because there are a number of DIGs. They are DIGs, Addl, provisioning, etc., etc., etc. But operations is the main functioning of the SPG. So that was a extremely good experience. And while DIG operations, I had worked closely with Mr. Vajpayee also, and then subsequently Mr. Manmohan Singh. So that is a privilege which I will always have at such a junior rank. But you normally don't come in such close proximity with the Prime Minister. And but then I had gone to the Intelligence Bureau, and when the NDA government came to power, so at that time I was Joint Director IB for Patna, Bihar and Jharkhand. I was heading that. So I was asked to come and head the organization. So it was a surprise, but I had never solicited that. Neither did I expect at any point of time that I would be considered for that. In fact, I had been asked, who would be good to head an organization? So I had actually recommended a few names who were much senior to me, very good officers also. But anyway, the government decided that, and that in the initial days of when Mr. Narendra Modi came to power, so I became the SPG chief, and it was a very challenging time because he was one of the very high threat individuals in the world, let alone in India. And in the initial years also, he was extremely mobile. So it was hugely challenging because every weekend he would be moving across India. There will be, we did number of things which we had actually never done earlier because he believed, and actually a few things when I had interacted with this Secret Service actually helped me because they had told us once Mr. Clinton had come to Bhuj when I was SP, nothing to do with the SPG at that point of time. So, so he deviated from his plan and he went to a village for a surprise visit. So I asked the Secret Service chap, how did you allow that? So this is a huge security risk and threat. So he said, if the chief wants it, then we have to make it happen. And you have to make it happen so that it is secure for him also. So always we operate under that principle. So that was always in my mind. So one of the few things which the Prime Minister told me, I don't want so much of security loitering all around me. So I said, sir, we'll take care of that. So one challenge was when the US president came to actually India, and he wanted at Dholpur House nobody should be seen and he should be moving around. So that was a huge challenge that, and we could achieve that. But can't go delve into how we did that, but that is how it happened. And of course, basically to managing those surprise visits, that the visits would remain a surprise. Because actually surprise also helps us, because the opposition also doesn't know where the principal is going. So to that extent, it helps us. One of the most difficult was when we had gone to Afghanistan, because no earlier Prime Minister had gone to Afghanistan. So this time actually the Foreign Secretary had called me and said, Vivek, I would want you to go and do the ASL yourself and don't send anybody junior to you to go there. So I had done the advanced security license, and then I also accompanied the Prime Minister there. And at that point of time, the new Parliament House was also handed over to the government of Afghanistan. And there they dropped a bombshell. While speaking to Nawaz Sharif, who was at that time the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz, it was his birthday. So actually the Prime Minister was wishing Nawaz Sharif a very happy birthday. I was just 10 feet away. So then probably Nawaz Sharif asked him that, why don't you drop over? While coming back, you will be flying over Pakistan in any case. And our Prime Minister, as he is, he take a yes, why not? But I'll come and wish you a happy birthday at your residence. So we were shocked. The PS was there and I was there with the two people there. So the PS was looking at me and I was looking stunned. What is he? You are going to Pakistan. No Prime Minister, Indian Prime Minister has gone to Pakistan in the last 1 decade. And you want to fly from here? And there is an... so anyway, Prime Minister Modi is a strong man. So once he makes up his mind, it is rather difficult to convince him to take a different course of action. I also thought even the Pakistani terrorists will be as surprised as me. So in any case, we are going to move in an hour. So, again, without going into at that time, Nawaz Sharif was in Lahore. So we landed at Lahore, and it was my privilege to accompany the Indian Prime Minister actually I was the sole security officer who was armed, and actually the only one who accompanied him to Nawaz Sharif's residence. So those are the experiences which will remain. At that point of time, he actually visited a number of countries also in the initial 2 years. It was a huge challenge, going and ensuring security, and because he actually generates a lot of enthusiasm among the Indian community wherever he goes. So there would always be thousands of people either on the road, etc. One instance was there, which was slightly worrisome, was when we had gone to Bangladesh. So when I had gone there, I met the chief of security there. So he said, I'm slightly worried. I said, why? He said, there is a message from one of the terror groups which says there will be some good news in the next couple of days. Now that is not good news for us, because if the Indian Prime Minister is there and a terror group which is targeting the Indian Prime Minister saying there is going to be good news, if it has been intercepted, then it is bad news for us. So, and they actually specialized in they had actually killed number of people using knives. They would get inside close, very close, and knife a person to death. So there, again, one cannot explain, but at that time I had to request the PM rather forcefully to not to do certain things. He was not very happy, but then I had to also tell him that I am in charge of his security, and as per the SPG Act, you are not in charge of your own security. So here I'll have to put my foot down. So, I worked with 3 prime ministers. So all 3 are completely different persons in their own respect. But to be sure, working with Prime Minister Modi was the toughest of all.
It is giving a proud feel to every Michaelite. Let me tell you, Vivek Bhaiya, hats off to you. Fantastic. And it was wonderful to hear to everyone, in today's webinar. It was a different one altogether. And, as Anshuman Bhaiya was telling, we also had Arun Bhaiya and Javed Bhaiya at one point, and they also spoke about being at Paris at the same time at different functions. So, everything correlates. And there is a story when Arun Mishra, 1976, was the DGCA, Director General of Civil Aviation, and Mr. Sanjay Singh, 1970, who was the head of Tata Steel, overlooking Vistara. He was held by Mr. Arun Mishra to set up Vistara through the DGCA at a very ease, because they were all Michaelites. So that is what
I'll add to that. Actually, in PMO, Javed, he was a couple of batches senior to me. He was JS in PMO. Yes. So all the foreign visits, he would actually be coordinating from the PMO side. So that actually helped. Both were of us from St. Michael, so I could actually walk into without any formality, or just walk across to him and sort things out like that.
Yeah.
And when one of the toughest tours was there to Afghanistan, there the Indian ambassador was, of course, another Michaelite. But senior to us, it was always a help, even in Washington. So wherever one used to go, so to cut bureaucraties, if I may put it, there was always a Michaelite that, so you can directly connect and get things sorted out at the place itself.
Yeah,
yes,
so
Nishant,
that's the way it is.
Nishant, Anshuman talked about the World Bank, and we had Arshad Alam also there.
And Sanjay Pradhan.
Yes, Sanjay Pradhan, and he mentioned the same thing. 7 Michaelites there at one point of time in the World Bank.
इसीलिए तो सब लोग पूछता है तुम्हारा स्कूल कौन सा है भाई?
Some people say कि सचमुच में exist करता है. I mean, like, how can it churn out so many? I mean, like, year after year, it's been doing so, and that's fantastic.
Right. So the last part of the webinar, we'll go to each Michaelite and we'll just ask them to give 2 lines to the Incredible Michaelites and the Alumni Association on a whole. So I'll start with the senior most, Jagjeet Bhaiya. Your 2 lines, Michaelites, please.
Well, I think the school has done a tremendous job, and the younger generation can see and connect to role models for themselves. There's so many different fields available now, and we didn't have this benefit when we were growing up, but now I think you can see so many people in so many different fields, and it's an interconnected network which is well worth preserving. And I think Nishant and Amber are doing a fantastic job getting this platform off the ground, and keep it going. Thank you.
Vivek Bhaiya, your 2 lines on the Incredible Michaelites and the Alumni Association on a whole, please.
Actually, I would say it has been a privilege to be a part of that school, and it is the whole milieu which has produced those students, each interacting with each other and the teachers across. And I hope the ecosystem continues and keeps on producing incredible Michaelites.
Thank you, Bhaiya. Anshuman Bhaiya, your 2 lines to the Alumni Association and the Incredible Michaelites, please.
Thank you, Nishant. I mean, first of all, congratulations to you for putting together this platform. Thank you, Amber sir. I mean, I'd only say every Michaelite is incredible. All the Michaelites who have been there, they're all incredible. It's been a privilege to be part of this panel. It's been a privilege to be a student of St. Michael's. I wish the school all the very best in future.
Thank you, Anshuman Bhaiya. So, coming to the end of webinar 13, we have got webinar 14 on 25th of October. We'll have Mr. Vivek Sinha. He's the MD of Tata Power. We have got Mr. Ranjanesh Sahai from Indian Railways and Mr. Prashant Panjiar, the avid photographer. Stay tuned, stay in touch, and thanks all the panelists. Thanks, Jagjeet Bhaiya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vivek Bhaiya, for joining. Thanks, Anshuman Bhaiya.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amber sir. You were again fantastic. Thank you, sir.